Hey, long time no see. You've really aged, haven't you? We're divorced, remember? Try to be a bit more considerate with your words. I thought as ex-spouses, we could speak freely. So, what have you been up to since our divorce? You know, I got married right after our split. And guess what? My wife was pregnant right away. If you're not infertile, it's easy to have kids. Now, I live happily with my wife and son. Good for you. I'm glad you're happy. What about you? Oh, sorry, I forgot. Being infertile means you're probably still single, right? Past 30 and unable to have kids, you must be pretty undesirable. I got divorced 15 years ago because of infertility. At a reunion, I met my ex-husband who bragged about his family to put me down. But he's making a big mistake. Huh? Who is? I'm about to correct his misunderstanding. He'll surely regret his words. Also, I'll throw in an extra piece of news. With a bit of mischief, I decided to share something unnecessary. That revelation would push him over the edge. I'm Rachel. I am a 28-year-old working at a consulting firm. I'm about to get married and will soon meet our parents. My fiancé, Ben, also 28, is a salesperson at a major manufacturer. We've been childhood friends since kindergarten. After high school, we went to different colleges, and after graduating, we got jobs and left their hometown. A few years after getting a job, we found out through social media that my workplace was nearby, and we met up for the first time in a long time since graduating. We moved away from my hometown and met childhood friends as adults. We started dating in a storybook romance and are now getting married. Are you sure it'll be okay? What if your father doesn't like me? Don't worry about it. But your father is a CEO. I used to talk to him casually as a kid, but now I'm nervous. My fiancé kept adjusting his straight tie, wiping the sweat from his forehead. Even I, who was watching, was nervous. Indeed, my dad owns a metalworking company in a small town. But it's not as grand as it used to be. Dad's not a stern figure. Take my daughter if you like, but no returns. His joke eased my fiancé's nerves in no time. I wouldn't return her even if you asked me to. Eventually, my fiancé even cracked a joke. My mom and I exchanged looks. Relieved that the meeting went well. But later, my fiancé seemed concerned. The factory and company. Are they doing okay? They're not as good as before. It's just how times change. Can't you, as a consultant, help out? Turning around a company is hard. I can't just do it part-time. If I were to help, I'd have to quit my job and join his company. So, you're planning to take over the business? No. Dad doesn't want me to struggle with it. He plans to sell it eventually. I just give simple advice to keep it running until he retires. Got it. Realizing the company was fine, my fiancé's face softened. I was touched by his concern for my dad. 6 months later, we got married. Do you want coffee, or will your usual tea do? Yes, tea please. While I was cleaning up after dinner, my husband prepared my tea perfectly. Also, to prevent the tea from getting cold, the tea is brewed just in time for when the dishes are finished. His thoughtfulness, typical of a salesperson, always anticipates my needs. Our marriage is going smoothly. However, 2 years in, I began to feel a certain unease about our otherwise perfect life. My relationship with my husband is good, and we're intimate fairly often. However, it's been 2 years since we got married, and we still haven't been blessed with a child. Don't worry so much, it'll happen eventually. But I'm already 30. I can't help feeling a bit anxious. My husband, lounging on the living room sofa and fiddling with his smartphone, responds casually to my concerns. Normally, I would be upset that he's not taking this more seriously. However, I know he's trying to prevent me from feeling too anxious or guilty about not being able to have children. He's an only child, just like me, and his parents both worked. He often spent time alone at home and has always longed for a complete family life. My parents also worked, but I spent time at their office after school, so I never felt the loneliness he did. Still, I understand the importance of spending time with loved ones and want to make his wish come true. I also want children. I think I'll go to the doctor just to be sure. Is that really necessary? If nothing's wrong, that's great. But if there's an issue, it's better to know, right? Well, yeah, I suppose. The following weekend, I went to the hospital alone for 2 reasons. 1, I assumed they'd probably just tell me nothing was wrong. 2, if there was a problem, I didn't want to worry about how to react in front of my husband. I casually went to the hospital, thinking about what to buy on the way home. The tests were over quickly, but I had to wait for the results. 2 weeks later, the results were in. It's like nature's rule to expect the worst in these situations. I didn't shop that day, just walked home staring at the ground. I'm infertile. Well, I told my husband about the diagnosis that evening, hoping to ease the tension by doing it during dinner. The mood in the house became heavy, and both of us stopped eating. But it wasn't all hopeless, there was some chance. The doctor said my infertility can be treated with about a 30% success rate. After 30, the chances decrease. I just made it in time. 30%, huh? And it only goes down from here. While I started eating again, my husband remained silent. We seemed to have different feelings about the 30% chance. When I first heard I was infertile, I was desperate. But hearing there was a 30% chance felt like a significant number to me. For my husband, though, it didn't seem like a high chance. Seeing his disappointed face made me stop eating again. Since then, our previously smooth marriage has become somewhat awkward. Will you be home late tomorrow too? Yeah. While cleaning up the dishes, I talk to my husband relaxing in the living room, but he responds disinterestedly. Ever since he found out about my infertility, he's been coming home late. He says he's busy with work, but I think he wants to spend less time at home. On weekends, he leaves early and returns late at night. He no longer sleeps in our bedroom, but on the living room sofa. We're together in the house, but living separate lives. I feel sad as I sense his heart drifting away. But knowing the reason is because of me, I can't blame him. 6 months later, my marriage had cooled significantly, and my husband and I hardly spoke at home anymore. Today, being a day off, he left the house early in the morning. Watching him put on his shoes at the entrance, I realized I felt somewhat relieved when he left. My mood lightened slightly, and I became more efficient with chores like laundry. However, as I was about to throw one of his shirts into the washing machine, I sighed. Foundation stains again. These never come out. I wasn't surprised to see the foundation on his shirt. It has been happening occasionally for the past 2 or 3 months. Since our relationship was already strained, I had no intention of making a fuss about a possible affair. I spread out the stained shirt and resigned myself to the fact that our marriage was probably nearing its end. It seemed he felt the same way. Given that he didn't bother to hide these foundation-stained shirts in the laundry basket. That night, I brought up the topic of divorce. Should we call it quits? If we divorce, you can be with your new woman, right? You knew? Drop the act. Can we just end this smoothly? Okay. I have a job and don't need his money. He works at a major manufacturer. It wouldn't hurt him much in terms of finance. I'd rather have a smooth separation than a messy divorce. He seemed to have anticipated my proposal and accepted the divorce without a flinch. However, I wanted to know a little about his affair. It was just my curiosity. What's she like? She's 2 years younger. We met through our shared hobby of fishing. So, that's what you've been doing on your days off. Brave of her to date a married man. You didn't hide your marital status, did you? I was honest. Told her I was planning to divorce and we're dating with the intention of remarrying. I'm ready to divorce, just waiting on her end now. Waiting? Don't tell me it's a double affair? No, she's just my girlfriend. I've successfully stolen someone's heart. I had many things I wanted to say. But I held back to avoid complicating the divorce. We finalized the divorce without issue. My ex-husband quickly moved on with his new partner, who apparently had also ended her previous relationship. They were planning to marry. I thought I was prepared for the divorce, but it hit me harder than expected. I stayed in our house for a while, continuing with my job, but eventually decided to quit and return to my parents' home. 15 years after returning home, I've completely healed from the divorce. It's now just a distant memory. Just then, I received a notice for a middle school reunion. My ex-husband, who was a childhood friend, might also attend. During the divorce, I prioritized a smooth separation and didn't express all my feelings. Although I didn't make a fuss about his infidelity, I wasn't unbothered by it. After 15 years, I decided to attend the reunion, planning a small act of revenge. However, my minor mischief would greatly disrupt his life. At the reunion, I saw many familiar faces. I was enjoying catching up with old friends, when I noticed a long-forgotten face approaching. "Hey, long time no see. You've really aged, haven't you?" My ex-husband greeted me with a mocking laugh. "If I'm old, so is he." I was enjoying the conversation until he approached with a villainous smile, making our friends awkwardly distance themselves from us. "We're divorced, remember? Be a little more considerate with your words." I figured as ex-spouses, we could speak freely. "How have you been since our divorce?" As for me, I got remarried right after our split. Right after the wedding, my wife got pregnant. Turns out, she was already pregnant when you and I divorced. If you're not infertile, it's easy to have kids. Now, I live happily with my wife and son. Good for you, I'm glad you're happy. And what about you? Oh, sorry. Being infertile, you're probably still alone, right? Past 30 and unable to have kids, you must be pretty undesirable to everyone, huh? Huh? Who is? My ex-husband shows me photos on his phone of his family outings and brags about his new wife and son, trying to one-up me with his happiness. I find his talk uninteresting and listen with an expressionless face. He seems to have a lot of misunderstandings. Just correcting those will surely make him regret his words. As I'm thinking about how to set him straight, a girl approaches me at just the right moment. "Mommy, I made a new friend." "That's great, sweetie. Mommy's talking to a friend right now. Can you go play with your new friend a little longer?" "Okay." She obediently runs off, full of energy. "Hey, who was that kid?" "What?" "That's my daughter. Didn't they say it was okay to bring kids today?" "Look, there are other kids around." "That's not what I mean." "Did she just call you mom?" "Yes, that's my daughter Sophia. She's 10 years old this year." "But weren't you infertile? How do you have a child?" "Oh, I get it. It's a stepchild. Is it the child of a remarried partner?" "Excuse me. Sophia is the child I gave birth to." "How?" "Infertility can be treated, you know? You just assumed it couldn't be cured." I hear soft chuckles from around us. My close friends know about my divorce and that I have a child. So, my ex-husband, who thought I couldn't have kids and tried to one-up me with his own, ended up being laughed at by our friends. He seems to realize he's the butt of the joke. "So, you have a child, which means you got married again. Congratulations." My ex-husband, embarrassed about trying and failing to one-up me with his child, turns red. Though he congratulates me, it seems more like an attempt to hide his embarrassment and appear magnanimous. Who'd marry an old hag like you? Workplace romance. Really? Still working at the consulting firm? No, you're out of the loop. I took over my dad's business. He's not retired yet, but he's working as the chairman now. What? I thought you said that company was going to be sold. I decided to take over the business when I moved back home after our divorce. It's been a tough 15 years, but now we're approaching a revenue of $60 million a year. We've moved up from a small to a medium-sized company. $60 million? My success in growing my father's company is fairly well known among local friends. My ex-husband, clueless about this, is once again the subject of chuckles from our friends.
Didn't you say running a company wasn't easy?
Yes, but after the divorce and quitting my job, I could fully focus on turning the company around. Growing the business was a continuous struggle. At first, employees were skeptical about me suddenly taking over. So, the first step is to actively communicate with employees and gain their trust. I spent the first 2 years building trust through communication and proved my worth through my work. It took another 3 years. During this time, I overworked myself to exhaustion, but my current husband supported me. He stood by me during my infertility treatments, and we had Sophia 10 years ago. For the past decade, we've been tirelessly growing the business, breaking through the $10 million revenue barrier faced by many companies, and now we're reaching $60 million.
You're the president of a $60 million company?
Yes. You let go of me, thinking I was infertile and unable to be successful. But I had a child and grew a business. How does that make you feel? And how about you? Have you made it to the sales director yet? I ask him with a smirk, not knowing his actual position at his company. Considering he works for a major manufacturer with many rivals, I'm sure it's not easy. Seeing him clench his teeth in silence, I'm convinced he hasn't achieved significant success. I counter his child's one-upmanship and surpass him in career success. Watching his frustrated face satisfies me, but I decide to drop one more bombshell. By the way, you said your wife got pregnant right after you married. That was right after our divorce, but also soon after she broke up with her boyfriend, right? Are you really sure that it's my child? Is that what you're trying to say?
Of course, it's my child.
Claiming that doesn't make it more convincing. You were having an affair, and so was she, right? The topics of affairs, the possibility that my ex-husband's child might belong to someone else, drew the attention of those around us. Not just our close friends, but many people gathered around us. It was a bit embarrassing to be the center of attention, but clearly, my ex-husband was the villain in this scene. The cold stares were all directed at him. He seemed to realize the chilly reception and quickly left the venue. Satisfied with making my ex-husband face embarrassment, I resumed chatting with my friends. My revenge on my ex-husband was complete. I thought I wouldn't think about him anymore. But about a month after the reunion, he called me. He probably got my number from a friend at the reunion. Reluctantly answering the phone, I wondered what he would say.
Hey! Did you know about this?
I racked my brain for what he could be referring to, but couldn't come up with anything. So, I directly asked him. What are you talking about all of a sudden?
It's about my child. Just like you said, it turns out he's not really my child.
What's that about? I couldn't help but burst into laughter, even though I knew I shouldn't. My ex-husband had taken my words seriously and got a DNA test, which revealed that the child he thought was his wasn't biologically related to him.
How did you know that? And why didn't you tell me?
I didn't know. I just said that to make you anxious or maybe cause a little fight with your wife. I never thought it would actually be true. Was she cuckolding you?
No, my wife didn't know either. She thought it was my child.
It's your own fault for not checking, even though she had a boyfriend right up until she got pregnant with you. But you've been raising that child for 15 years, blood-related or not, he's still your child, right?
What? Why would he be my child? He's the child of my wife's ex-boyfriend. I've decided to divorce.
What? Just like when discussing divorce, there are many things I want to say to my ex-husband. However, people have different values, and I don't think I should interfere in other people's family affairs. I swallowed the words that rose to my throat. Then you're getting a divorce, right?
I'm in trouble because I can't do that.
Why?
My wife says she won't divorce me.
When it was discovered that the child was not his, my ex-husband asked his new partner for a divorce. At that time, It seems that his wife put the divorce on hold and first sought out and contacted her boyfriend from 15 years ago. Perhaps after the divorce, she was checking to see if she could rely on her ex-boyfriend. However, when she told her ex-boyfriend about her child, he apparently lost contact with her, quit his job, and disappeared. When your ex-girlfriend contacts you for the first time in 15 years and tells you that she has your child, I can understand why he wants to run away. It seems that she can no longer rely on her ex-boyfriend and is refusing to divorce because she doesn't want to be abandoned.
Your wife gave birth to someone else's child, right? Can't that be grounds for divorce? That's where it gets complicated. Just because the child was born before the divorce doesn't mean it was an affair. My wife and I thought it was our child.
Apparently, the relationship between my ex-husband and new partner is much more complicated than I imagined. He explained it to me in detail, but I couldn't understand it because it involved the law. There were some parts that I could understand. First, because she and my ex-husband believed their children, legally speaking, my ex-husband is the father. For my ex-husband to push through with the divorce, it seems necessary to go through a complicated process. There seems to be a case in the past where the court has ruled that parentage cannot be denied based on the results of a DNA test, so this seems to be quite difficult. It would be entirely the fault of my ex-husband and his wife, as they both believed the child was their own and neither of them investigated the child's father. Since she did not intentionally deceive my ex-husband, there is a high possibility that a divorce may not be granted even if the child is the reason. In other words, his wife refuses to divorce my ex-husband because she can't rely on anyone because her child's real father has run away. My ex-husband wants a divorce, but he may not accept the fact that he is not the father of the child as a reason for divorce. That seems to be the case.
The point is, you can't get a divorce even if you wanted to, right? That's the thing. What should I do now? Do I have to keep raising other people's children like this?
When I heard my ex-husband's words, I let out a sigh.
You say it's someone else's child, but isn't it yours already? Huh? Why does it have to be my child? It's my wife's ex-boyfriend's child.
I spoke firmly, thinking a little argument wouldn't hurt, but it seems my words didn't affect my ex-husband at all. It was a waste of time trying to argue with him.
I have nothing more to say to you. You chose to divorce me thinking my infertility was incurable. You snatched your second wife away from her boyfriend, and you didn't bother to confirm the paternity of the child. All those decisions were yours. Take responsibility for them.
I yelled at him and hung up the phone. How pathetic my ex-husband is, whining to his ex-wife he divorced 15 years ago. When I got home from work that day, my husband and daughter were happily watching TV in the living room. Watching them from behind, I realized how glad I was to have divorced my ex-husband. Apparently, he couldn't get a divorce yet. Obviously, he has to pay for the child's living expenses and child support. The child is 15, so even if he divorces in 3 years, the child will already be an adult. His second wife will probably not make a fuss about divorce at that point. It's a clear win for her. She hasn't told the child about his real father yet. So, the child resents his father for abruptly leaving. When he learns the truth, he might be relieved he's not really my ex-husband's child. But it could also increase his hatred for my ex-husband. When that time comes, I hope my ex-husband faces the child's anger without running away. By then, he'll have experienced his second divorce and likely won't want to marry again. My ex-husband tried to one-up me, thinking I couldn't have children, but I got the upper hand with my child and career. My little comment threw his life into chaos. Maybe he shouldn't have tried to one-up me. I continue to work hard. And unlike my ex-husband, our family relations are great. We're currently planning where to go on our next day off.